Hi there, everyone. Scott and Lars back, this time with a review for the Apothecary Diaries Season 2, Episode 1. Oh, yeah.
Oh man, I'm so excited for this. I mean, I say that all the time for all sorts of anime. That's just kind of the person I am. But Apothecary Diaries been on my radar for a long time. Like it's such a fun, interesting story. This one has lasting power in my opinion.
It really does. And it's a story that works also for just so many different people. I recently shared it with my family, and my mom got really into Apothecary Diaries, so that was neat to see that happen. But before we get much further into this video, I do want to congratulate real quickly I'm Omega for being the first person to claim a frog from Camille. Woohoo! As we review and analyze all the episodes for the Apothecary Diaries, you guys will have a chance to claim your own frog that has been personally drawn by Camille, our Lord and Savior here at the Harem. But the only way to do that is that you have to get the correct number of frogs in each video that we will have interspersed throughout the review. If you get the correct number of frogs and you comment with that correct number and be the first one to do that, you will get your own frog. And once you've gotten a frog, you're out of the competition, so that way we can make room for more people to get more frogs. If you know, you know. But we want to make sure that everyone has a chance to get their own personalized little frog from Camille, for as many people as possible.
Dang, that's something else. I love Camille's artwork. She does just a fantastic job. She has such a kind of spooky, ethereal kind of art style. I think this is going to be fun.
Oh yeah, it's going to be great. She's already shared with me some of the other frogs that are up for grabs, and I think that people will be very happy to have that frog
Nice.
with their name and everything. But with that being said, let's dive into the events of this episode before Scott and I do our analysis and epic breakdown of all the things that we saw.
That opening, I mean, not the opening song, which I do like the opening song. Like it's a bop. But that opening into the harem, just like the beautiful artwork and the beautiful animation going into it, just so stunning. That's a great way to start an anime. Just you're getting this broad view. You don't even have to hear what anybody's saying. You're just getting this broad view of the general state, the harem that Apothecary Diaries is set in as it begins.
Yeah, and this episode really is about kind of recentering us and regrounding us in the world that Maomao inhabits, specifically the Rear Palace. So we get to see through Jinji, as Jinji goes around, visits the different members of the harem, checks in on them. There's already a little bit of drama that's building up, and he's also looking for Maomao. Maomao is over with the quack doctor, distilling alcohol, but this time for the purpose of doing cleaning, because we got to make sure that the place is good and clean, not just for the young princess, but also for Lady Gyokyo's next baby. Woohoo! Many congratulations to her. Meanwhile, the old granny from the red light district is shipping off tons of sexy material back to the Rear Palace because Maomao has ordered a bunch of stuff to distribute to all of the ladies, saying, hey, because any of them can be chosen by the emperor, they should be ready and knowledgeable of things that one does when they dance the mattress mumbo. However, Jinji and Gaoshin kind of confiscate a lot of that and instead decide to use Maomao's contacts with the printer to print a romance novel to be distributed to all of the girls. So that way the girls can become more literate and have some entertainment along with all of the work that's expected of them within the Rear Palace. So while that's happening, Xiaolin asks for Maomao to teach her how to read and write because she doesn't just simply want to hear other people recite the story. And that's really great and awesome. She's already thinking about what she's going to do in her contract within the rear palace is up. And while this is also happening, a precious little kitten is discovered. And the princess wants the kitten. Maomao helps to retrieve the kitten with the help of a new character whose name we haven't yet been given, but she's got striking purple hair. The show made a point of showing her multiple times, so we know that she's going to be important somehow, some way, sometime, somewhere. And and we get this cute sequence of Maomao and the doctor trying to nurse the kitten back to health. We learn, I think, an interesting detail that people are not allowed to have pets unless they've been given special permission. And just as the men in the rear palace, male cats and male dogs need to be properly neutered, so that way there is no proliferation of little critters. But this female cat is accepted by the princess. The emperor says he wants Maomao to take care of the cat. Everyone names the cat Maomao. Maomao doesn't like cats, and Jinchi joins the rest of us in coming to realize why cats are so dang precious. And I am jealous of that man for getting a face full of belly rub right there without getting slashed to ribbons. And yeah, that's pretty much this episode. However, as Scott and I are going to discuss, while it doesn't seem like there's really all of that big stuff happening other than the ominous closing of the caravan and these two women lit in red, very creepy. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, that's how the episode ends, but it doesn't feel as if a whole lot's been happening. However, this episode was chocked full of stuff.
Honestly, this entire episode was fantastic setup for some of the stuff that's going to happen. We're getting introduced to some characters, even though we don't have a name. That one lady that like helped Maomao catch the cat, she's going to be important later in multiple different arcs. You also have like the introduction of the novel. Like it showcases like a really interesting part of the harem where it's like not just the consorts and their like waiting ladies, but there's support systems built in like for the girls that have basically been like sold into the harem to like become friends and learn things and like be able to help each other out. So like Maomao, like Xiaolan and Maomao, like when she first got there, how like they're just like very low on the totem pole, like maids basically, but they have their own place, they have their own support systems, and it's just creating more nuance in that harem. It's fleshing out the location, the setting more and more, so we're able to delve more into different parts of the setting to get more information as the story goes.
And one of the things that I really liked about this episode is that it didn't serve as a massive recap for season one. It has plenty of references to some of the big events of season one and some of the reveals and some of the character development. However, this episode is about the setup for this upcoming season, regrounding us in who the important characters are, what their dynamics are, and already introducing us, of course, to we've got the caravan coming up. Oh my, Gyokyo is pregnant again, and this seems like Lady Lulan is causing a stir with all of those extra ladies in waiting, on top of the continuing relationship between the rear palace and the red light district, which was a big deal in the previous season. So it's not just being left off to the side now, it's still going to be relevant moving forward. Right. And so, yeah, that was all that, like, that's like, it seems small at first, but this is the heavy lifting to pay off for big reveals and big moments later on.
And I love how, like, that setup's doing a lot to introduce us into multiple arcs that we're going to have, because, and like, this is setup that's been happening since the show started. Because, like, there's going to be elements of the red light district that are definitely going to come back. There's going to be parts of, like, Maomao and her family that's definitely going to come back. There's going to be part of Jinchi's backstory that we found out that's going to become really important later. There's going to be characters that like we thought we'd never see again going to become important again. And just looking at the opening and like rumors on the internet, how long this is going to go, we're going to have some major reveals this season, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Same here. And to kind of like come back actually around to, again, first season, I also like how the very opening of this episode kind of closes a bit of the book on a big thing that happened at the end of the first season, which was everything having to do with Maomao's mother and father. By going back to the red light district and seeing the room where Feng Shan had been housed for so long, now it's open, it's being cleaned and everything. The world is moving on from this from this point. And I like that. I thought that was actually a very respectful and beautiful way of tipping the hat to that amazing arc that concluded the last season. And now, like, the slate, weirdly enough, the slate feels clean for going forward into this next season. But as you said, Scott, big things are coming. Like this actually, in a way, it also lures us into a false sense of security, because this episode just feels so warm and fuzzy and literally cuddly, and it means then that you're a little bit unprepared emotionally or mentally for whatever is about to come and whack us in the face.
Well, and based off of what I remember from the manga, and there's going to be some other stuff going on before the end of the current arc, but this first arc is going to be, just remembering the ending of that one just makes me laugh. Like, it's going to be a very comedic, very fun arc for everybody involved. But like, it's all leading into some more serious stuff coming up from what I remember reading the manga. And I really need to sit back down and reread the manga, because there's it's like a Sherlock Holmes story. There's so many little details that if you're not paying attention to, you won't remember them when it comes back around. And so Apothecary Diaries, it's not one of those you can just put on in the background and binge and expect to fully understand what's going on at the end. You have to pay attention.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. And one of those details that for me, you and I had a conversation about this before we began recording, but one of the big details that really stuck out to me, and it is pointed out in the moment by Jinji, is that Lady Lulan has a ridiculous number of ladies in waiting. And for me, this is such a big deal, not only because drama within the rear palace, but also because this ends up kind of making the dynamics really, really interesting, really, really strange. When I was just doing these reviews and analyses myself for the first season, one of the big things I stressed was the theme of autonomy for the women. How the women find ways of expressing themselves, exerting what power they do have, is a big deal throughout the show. And you see it exercised in various ways by different women. And when we understand the setting, even more so, this becomes important, because the palace is a beautiful place. It's the seat of power within the empire, but it's also kind of a gilded cage for everyone in it, including the emperor. There are laws, there are expectations, there are contracts, there's intrigue, there's power, there's station. All of these things can easily constrain even the most powerful person in the empire. And so the ways that women express themselves through their beauty, their jewelry, their dress, their actions, their knowledge, all of these things show that these women are more than just the pieces to be played with within courtly politics. They are true individuals. Lady Lulan, by bringing in all of these women, is a way of exerting power, of showing force. She is not going to play by the usual rules. This is a very domineering move, which is going to cause problems. And an interesting play back is that Jinji is now made it more possible for the women across the entire court to become literate. So you actually have like two odd power plays happening at the same time. Peasants becoming literate and this one lady not seemingly playing by the rules. Oh boy, the rear palace is going to get nutty. At least that's my read on the situation. As opposed to Scott, I have not read ahead in the manga, so or in the light novels, so I'm just going off of what I can observe in the anime.
I have to agree with that. That's really well put together. There's so many like different power like struggles and moves in this show. Like there's a lot of conniving, there's a lot of like ins and outs, and like I said, if you're not paying attention, you'll miss them, because like the entire point of the harem in the first place, I mean, it's there for the emperor to like sire children and to have a place to go to relax basically, but it's just another court within a court. It's all set up so people can like move their like daughters or family members or like people they find into a place where they can influence the emperor in some form or another. And so like you have the most powerful consorts. They're the ones that have the most influence, but two, like they've got the most background with what's going on, and they're the ones that often enough we have to pay attention to in a lot of cases, what's going on with them and their ladies in waiting, because they're the big power movers within the harem other than the emperor.
Yeah, so this again, power dynamics are very important in all of this, which is what makes Maomao throughout the entire series such a fun character. Because again, I talked about in the first season how Maomao shows her autonomy and maintains her identity in large part by being kind of aloof from all of this and really focusing on the things that she loves. She loves poison. She loves medicine. She loves invention. She loves knowledge. And not like knowledge of what the court's doing, but just all like, oh, you can learn this thing, that you can do this with lead. You can melt it at this temperature when you have this particular compound. Ooh, this drug looks interesting. I will learn how to make sleeping death. all of that kind of stuff. It makes her so unique within this. Like this could very easily just be a show where we see just the politicking of it all, but by having Maomao act as such an outsider, even though she's in the thick of it, makes all of the details and the heavy stuff, in my opinion, more palatable, more interesting, a little bit more lighthearted. And for some of that more serious stuff, that's where Shinji comes in, because he is a creature of the palace. This is what he's been raised in all his life, and this is what he knows. And so through his perspective, we can get more of that heavy stuff and then rely on Maomao for the more lighthearted approach to everything.
Yeah, well, very morbid, lighthearted approach to everything. We get the idea. I love how like we're shown the story through both of their characters, not just straight Maomao, because like if it was just straight Maomao, it would be fantastic. I love Maomao as a character, but like we're gonna miss like specific little bits and pieces that only Jinchi is gonna be aware of. And so it's important to have those characters that they're able to showcase multiple sides of the story. So we're getting a more nuanced, more interesting story as it goes.
And one of the things that you had talked about before we began recording, Scott, is also how this show really uses the past to help drive the narrative of what's happening right now. And it does it in a very good, creative way. This isn't Naruto where we're going to jump back into the past for an episode or two to then explain what's happening in the present. And we already see that being used in little fun ways by the end of this episode, as Maomao is complaining about why people like cats and that she doesn't get it. And as she's describing it all, we get flashbacks of what's happened in the past from Jinji's perspective, which is a good way of doing a recap and having flashbacks.
Yeah. No, it's a great way of showing like exposition. Like I love the idea of having another character, they've got a monologue, but you're seeing the flashback from the perspective of a different character. So we're getting two different like views into the same topic. Like that's pretty good storytelling right there.
Yeah. And that's something that visual storytelling especially
Yes.
can handle really well, because when you have to write it out in prose, you can still pull it off, but it comes off, you have to like really balance how the characters are interacting, with one character saying one thing and then another character either out loud or inwardly is remembering it differently, and you have to give each about the same amount of time or space on the page. Visually, you can do it all more. You can do one character's perspective silently as the other character speaks, and do just as much with less time.
Yeah.
So,
well, and just going back to like how important the past is, like it has completely shaped who the people are, why they're there in the harem at this time and place, in what way the harem was formed originally, but like also why these power dynamics are there in the first place. And there's going to be some, like from what I've read in the manga, and the more we talk about this, the more I actually want to just jump into the light novels to find out more and more, because usually light novels have so much more information than either the anime or the manga, because like there's so many things building up to some really great stuff, and I'm excited to see like your perception on everything that's going on in this, Lars.
as the ignorant person here.
Hey, I got to play the ignorant person with Don.
Yep.
It's your turn.
Oh yeah, no, and I'm loving it. I like not knowing. I know that we've talked about this in the past about how like for some manga, I'll look back to the most recent. I'll look ahead to the most recent chapter. Be like, okay, does this look like it's still good later on? Because if it isn't, I do not want to waste a few days reading through 100 chapters for it to drop off a cliff. But there are other times where the story is just so engaging and so much fun, where I'm like, I don't want to know. I don't want to be spoiled. And Apothecary Diaries is one of those stories where I'm just so captivated. I don't want to be spoiled. I just want to enjoy it as it comes. Like, you can give me hints, and I'm like, I'm going to look for that little hint whenever it finally when it finally manifests itself. But I don't want to be spoiled, because this is just such a fun show and story to experience as it's happening.
Looking forward to seeing where this goes. I'm looking forward to seeing animated, because it's been absolutely stunningly animated. Like the first season and second season, like that's part of the draw to the show, honestly.
It is gorgeous, and just holy cow, the attention to detail. One of the things I love in a well animated series is what's going on in the background, how the background feels alive. And I rate how well there's a lot of animated shows, animated movies that are a ton of fun, and they're a ton of fun, and you can just go along with it and whatnot. But like when you're like, okay, but let me talk about quality, you stop focusing on the immediate characters and story, and you look to the background. And when the background starts coming to life, that's when you know that this thing was loved from beginning to end. Which like there's plenty of anime that don't have a whole lot happening in the background, but they're still great. And like that doesn't take away from the overall enjoyment. But when you can see just how much care and attention has been given to background details and to the environment, you're like, that's just chef's kiss. And the Apothecary Diaries has that, where all of the utensils and like artistry in the background of the different like Jade Palace and Amethyst Palace, or whatever it is, like the different palaces are all just rendered gorgeous and lifelike, which is incredible to see. So with all of our gushing there, we could wax poetic and eloquent about every single little detail, but then at that point we just become pedantic. We save that for our live streams. But with all that being said, we have enjoyed this first episode of season 2. We're so looking forward to the rest, and hopefully you are as well. Please remember, if you want to get a frog drawn by Camille, make sure that you comment with the correct number of frogs hidden in this video to get your own frog. Also, we just love to hear your feedback, your take on this episode. What are you looking forward to? Please keep the spoilers to an absolute minimum, because remember, you're dealing with a guy who's an anime only right here. But yeah, give us your observations, your feedback, your takes on everything that's going on, because that's what we love to see from our fellow fans for this series. And if you haven't already subscribed, please make sure that you do so and click the bell notification so that way you can be notified for all of our reviews and analyses for the Apothecary Diaries Season 2. And if you would especially like to support what we do, please check out the books that we've published. Links for them are in the description below. But with all that being said, thank you so much for joining us on this incredibly, beautifully animated adventure that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.
Okini.
その後子猫は皇帝より要するに異局の備蓄を荒らすネズミを退治するので
名前がマオマオに